Well, one person who definitely wouldn't be taking part in that is our press reviewer, Elena Casas Montañez, given your lovely white dress that you're wearing today, Elena. But time to take a look at Thursday's newspapers across the world. What have you got for us today?
Let's start with The Guardian front page, one of a lot of papers recently who are looking at the overall conduct of the war on terror as it comes up to the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. And this morning they've come up with a revelation. This story here, headlined, How US Firms Turned CIA Torture Flights into Profits. Now, The Guardian has dug this out by finding the court documents of an obscure case filed in upstate New York by one aviation company against another. But it turns out that both companies were involved in the rendition flights that the CIA used to move prisoners to Guantanamo Bay and numerous other secret prisons around the world. And this is the first time the names of the companies involved, the executives who knew who was really on those planes, has been revealed, along with how much profit they made. The paper reveals they were charging the government $5,000 an hour for the rent of a plane. And the documents also show the identity of prisoners being rendered on particular flights, so we can identify for the first time the exact route taken and planes used for, say, Abu Omar, who's the Egyptian cleric captured in Milan in 2003, who then says he was taken to Cairo and tortured. And the files contain detailed flight plans, so we can have a look at the map there, which the paper has drawn up, which shows exactly where the CIA's secret prisons were, including one in Europe at Bucharest in Romania. And you can see exactly how many flights were shown there and were flown there and which prisoners were on them. And there's also direct flights to Guantanamo from several European countries, including those who denied that their air bases were ever used for US rendition flights. And it's worth noting, none of these documents was actually ever secret. The US government did go to great lengths to cover up the existence of these rendition flights, but of course an international air flight can't be totally secret. All of these documents were held by airports and air authorities around the world, and this is just the first time they've all come together and enabled The Guardian to paint this picture of exactly what happened, mostly between 2003 and 2007.
Very interesting stuff. Well, let's stay with the Middle East, so to speak, because the New York Times has a rare report from inside the insurgency going on in Syria.
Yes, the New York Times' Anthony Shadid is one of the very few Western journalists to have made their way into Syria in recent months and interviewed dissidents. He reports from a safe house in the city of Homs, where hundreds of dissidents in their 20s gather every night in open defiance of the regime, he says, bragging about things like spreading nails onto the streets and to puncture police tyres and firing onions at them through plastic pipes. And they organise groups around the country online through social networks. He asks how it's possible that a bunch of young people firing onions and playing around on Twitter in the evenings can have actually managed to mount a resistance to such a violent regime, and how they haven't been put off and terrified by the amount of people who have been killed. He asks the young protester that, and the man replies, in Tunisia they won, Egypt won, and we're going to win. There's no turning back. The piece also points out that the sectarian divisions have long been fostered by Assad to keep his own Alawite ethnic group in power have seemed to be overcome by the groups who are putting aside their differences to fight a common enemy. They say in the city of Hama, which has been anti-regime since the 1982 massacre carried out by Assad's father, they've even set up a functioning alternative government where they have militias organised not only to man barricades and keep a curfew, but also to clean the streets and so on, deter looters, that kind of thing. So his abiding impression is that the Syrian insurgents are determined and organised despite the overwhelming repression, and that they will prevail.
Okay, well, a fascinating peek there into events in Syria. Sticking with US media, a full-on feud broken out between two news groups over there.
Yes, you've probably heard of the left-leaning politics and gossip site Gawker, and of course of the right-wing news channel Fox, who you wouldn't think would really be competing, certainly not for the same audience, but they have a full-on feud going on now. Britain's Independent has called this the media battle that divides America. Gawker called Fox News a right-wing organisation run by fatuous, fat-headed people who tell lies, and Fox has fired back by calling Gawker a lousy site run by miserable 20-somethings who churn out wall-to-wall snark. Now the Gawker has come up with a revelation about Fox's most popular presenter, Bill O'Reilly. Apparently, it turns out he persuaded high-level contacts in his local police force to order a misconduct inquiry into an officer who happens to be having an affair with his wife. So using leverage there to solve a personal grudge. So that feud looks like it might run and run.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Elena, for bringing it to our attention, and indeed for all of that look of at today's international newspapers.